Good morning, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to be. I'm excited to talk about you. I would like to ask you to forgive my background because we're all going through a little bit like less than traditional type situation, right? Normally, I have an office with pretty shelves and things behind me, but this past couple of weeks have really ushered in some changes for our family. And one of those being that everyone needs a workspace. We need 5 individual workspaces and 5 individual screens. And we were able to kind of cobble that together, but it's ended me up in the bedroom. And I think there's a kid with a cracked iPad for his screen. But we're making do. So I'm Whitney English. I am excited to have you join me here. This is the first Tuesday workshop. I do a workshop on the first Tuesday of every month. And the quarterly workshops are all goal setting workshops, not goal setting. But I'm getting ready to tell you more about that in a minute. And this is a sort of a crazy time, right? When I feel like most goals for most people have kind of gone out the window. Does that feel like you? I think whenever we were talking, my team and I were talking about whether or not we should keep this workshop as a quarterly goals check-in workshop, we really went back and forth. Are goals the thing that we actually need to be discussing right now? That was a question we asked ourselves. And then as a brand and a business, we want to meet you guys where you are, but are goals the thing that you want to hear about right now? And we had to kind of go back and just think about, like, where are you guys? And when we ask ourselves that question, we all also say, like, okay, so where are we? And we reflected back to the first of the year and we thought about where we were then. Juggling so much, doing so many different things, running around, working, probably had some projects in place. Kids were at school, you dropped them off, you forgot about them. And we contrasted that with where we are right now. And all of us right now are juggling so much. It'll get easier. It's a new, we were thrust overnight into a completely new lifestyle, and we've had to figure it out. And I know that's challenging for some of us. I do have to say that it gives me so much joy to see the human spirit come alive in the face of so much adversity. Like, the human spirit is so resilient. And life is fragile, but there are so many strong people out there who are leading the charge in all different ways, and helping us find this new normal, helping us normalize, helping us find this sense of rhythm and routine that we lost so quickly. And so now we're juggling all this stuff. Some of us are trying to homeschool. When we're done homeschooling, we're just praying that the kids stay quiet so that we can get some work done. I actually tried to record this video last night, and 2 kids and a dog interrupted. And one kid just wanted to take a shower, and he just didn't understand why that wasn't allowed during the recording of a video. The other kid was sad because they were playing a game at the dinner table and he got a little too excited and he didn't get to finish the game, and he came upstairs crying. And the dog just has to follow me around all the time. That is the evening. It didn't work. And so we're trying to do all this stuff and be good parents and work. Or in addition to being good parents, a lot of us are worried about our parents. And maybe you don't have kids, but maybe you're trying to take care of an elderly parent. Maybe you're trying to take care of a parent who won't listen to you. I think I have had so many friends in that situation. And they're trying to figure out, how do they get these members of their family that needs that they have and explain things like food and meals and things like that. And how do they explain to them what's going on in a way that these people will take seriously? So there's a lot going on. And I do not want to be another person adding to the stress of how we are all feeling in this time. When all this began, our focus was on different things. And the way I have viewed the situation when I'm in the right mindset and I have a good perspective, believe me, it wasn't last night. But when I have a good perspective on this, the way I view it is this is an opportunity for us to focus on what matters. Focus on what matters. Focus on what matters. When I talk about heart goals, and especially when I write, I'm in the middle of writing a book about it. So I'm spending a lot of time journaling and getting thoughts out on paper. And I frequently turn back to the word focus. What you focus on expands. What we focus on happens. What we focus on is what we are prioritizing in our life. And the word focus has just been so important to me over the past year. And it's so obvious to me in my life that what we just shifted was our focus. We were focusing on other things. And now we actually have the privilege and the opportunity to focus on what matters. I was doing Bible study last night on a Zoom call, and a friend of mine was saying that she just feels very lost. It's like, what are you supposed to do? And so she's looking around and other people are planting gardens with their kids, or, they've started a new initiative at work and they've switched gears and they're doing something else. And she's like, I just don't know what to do. And so for anybody in that situation, what I would like to encourage you to do is to go back to what matters. Now, if you're like me, there will probably come a time in your life, if it hasn't already, where you will say, hold up, Whitney, what matters? Like, you're telling me to focus on what matters, but what is it? What is the thing that matters? And that's where heart goals comes in. We're all trying to survive the day-to-day. Actually, let me back up. There are a few different ways you can set goals. And I'm going to say something completely shocking to you in a second. You can set big goals. You can take out a piece of paper and you can say, at the end of my life, when I'm 80 or 90 or 120, here are the things I want to have done. Sort of a bucket list way of setting goals. You can set goals for yearly increments, 5 years, 10 years. That's another long-term way of setting goals, where we all have, 8 to 10 decades in life. Where are we going to be at the end of each of those decades? Another way you can set goals is yearly. And here's part of the shocking thing I'm going to tell you. I don't like setting yearly goals. I'll tell you why in a second. But a lot of people do. A lot of people feel like they need to. A lot of people feel like they're supposed to set yearly goals. Productive people love setting yearly goals. People who are really into personal development, personal growth, and efficiency and things like that, they love setting yearly goals. Some of us feel a little bit of like pressure. Like, we kind of look over at our neighbor and we say, well, they're setting a lot of goals, so maybe I should set a couple, two, I don't know. The comparison game isn't going to really help us ever. We know that. We do it anyway. But you can also set yearly goals. Then you can also set monthly goals and weekly goals and daily goals. And a lot of times, again, let's go back to like the super productive gurus of our day, the high efficiency experts and things like that. They're going to tell you to look at your yearly goals and then break those down. Like, what are your monthly milestones going to be? What are your weekly checkpoints going to be? What things do you need to do every single day to make progress on those goals? And that is the method that I would call that traditional goal setting. And it did not work for me. It was completely and totally frustrating for me to look at a yearly goal that I'd set. Let's just say I set a yearly goal, run a marathon. That's enough time to train for a marathon, right? Well, I'd get into month 2, let's call it February, and an ice storm hits and I can't go outside to run and I can't get to the gym because I can't drive. And all of a sudden I haven't gone running for a week and then maybe I get sick. So I've missed a couple of days of training there. And then before I know it, it's March. I haven't done anything on that goal because life got in the way. And I look at that list of things that I said I was going to have done by the end of this year, and it's not done. And I give up. I have set myself up for failure by creating a plan that is too long and too far and too elaborate. I've spent a ton of energy creating a plan, so that's wasted time. And I'm not going to get this thing done anyway. I feel very defeated about it. I don't feel like it's even possible to continue to accomplish. I feel like traditional goal setting has set me up for failure. That's what traditional goal setting does, is it sets us up for failure. It's not flexible. It's not fluid. It's not dynamic. We don't know when we're breaking down goals in January if things are going to, what's going to happen in February. And this February, what happened to all of our goals was the coronavirus, the COVID. And it's changed our world. It's upside down. There's a quote I love by, I think, Thomas Edison, I think, said, most people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like hard work. Like, a lot of people don't see the opportunity of this situation is because we had a system over here and it was working. And all of a sudden life has said, oh no, you got to come up with a completely different system. And we're like, that's going to take work. That's going to be really hard for my family and me. As long as we are talking about how hard it is to get our new system and our new normal, we're going to be missing opportunities. And I would rather look at the hard stuff and lean into it and say, we got to get this done. We have to tackle this. It kind of gets the hard stuff over with faster. And B, once we acknowledge and accept the hard things, the challenges, and we know that those things are going to grow us and improve us and make us better, we actually kind of get to the better faster once we accept the hard stuff. So back to goal setting and life throwing things at you. Here is the shocking thing I am going to tell you. I do not track my goals. And when I told my team I was going to say that today, they were like, no, like, Whitney, you like practically set goals for a living. You can't tell people that you don't track them. And I was like, but I don't. And you know what? My goals are still on track. So I want to show you today how you can use the Heart Goals method of goal setting to do this with your goals. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to briefly run through the acronym of HEART and what this is. And then I'm going to ask you some questions just about your life, some things that you can write down and you can think about and you can start to apply to your life. So first of all, the quick run through of HEART goals. HEART is an acronym. You may have heard of SMART goals. I don't use SMART goals for my goal setting method. I use a method called HEART goals. HEART is an acronym. I just said that. The H stands for help yourself. This is the physical well-being. This is the healthy aspect of things. We have to start with our physical well-being. Each of these letters represents a domino that's going to fall, and the first domino that has to fall to set us up for success in life is helping ourselves. We have to be in the best place we can possibly be physically before we can move on to the next letter in goal setting. The next letter is E. This stands for empower yourself. This is all about your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. So we move from the body to the mind and the heart. How are those things going to be in our lives? That's the next letter. The next letter in the acronym. The letter after that is A, all your people. And this is your relational well-being. And I've got an important question that you can ask yourself on that I'm going to give you in a minute. It's extremely applicable to this time and focusing on what matters. The R is your resources. I call this the stuff and things category. It's the money category. This is a category I don't necessarily love dealing with. This is about keeping the wheels on with things at home. And it's involved a lot of homekeeping. I have a couple of resources I'll mention to you in a little bit on that. And then the last letter is T, and this stands for your trade. This is your work and career category, life segment. This is where you're going to focus on work and career goals. Okay, so here's a little trick. You've probably heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the results come from 20% of our actions. That 80-20 rule applies to heart goals. You're going to spend 20% of your time in the first 4 life segments to get 80% of your results from that last life segment, that T, that trade life segment. And I think for most of us, that is the part of our lives that was completely ripped out under our feet. If we have kids at home, they're pulling away from work right now. So not only can we not drive to an office and we can't be at work and we can't, go about the normal rhythms and the normal schedule of the day, we've got people at home that are pulling us away from that. So there are some good things that are going to come out of that. I promise. Keep listening, and we'll get to there in a little bit. So goals, what we're not going to do today is we're not going to focus on the goals you set in January. I'm just going to assume that, like the rest of those, are out the window. If you're training for a marathon, you can probably still do that. You can probably get out and run. It's beautiful spring. Maybe that's going to work. But everything else is probably pretty shot right now. And I would like to encourage you to lean into that hard fact and find the beauty in it. It's really an amazing opportunity to change things up and to look for different ways you can make progress in life, even if it means you're not going to be making progress on those specific goals. So I'd like to give you permission to let those goals go. And that might not be what you want to hear, but it's what we need to talk about right now. What I need you to do right now is to mindset shift with me. I want you to change the idea of what success looks like in your mind. So before you watch this, success meant focusing on the outcome that each of those goals was going to bring. And we have to find a new definition of success. And I would like to pose for you just today, I would like for you, for the rest of this workshop, I would like for you to adopt the concept that success looks like focusing on what matters. And that's it. So back to heart goals. I want to talk to you about how the heart acronym ties in with focusing on what matters. I kind of hit a point in my life where I was looking at the gurus, the Tony Robbins of the world, everybody who was saying, anybody who ever wrote a self-help book, or a productivity book. And they would say, you just need to figure out what matters in your life. You need to define what's most important, and then you need to go do that. And they would give that illustration of the rocks in a jar. And they would say, you've got a jar, and if you put the big rocks in first, you can then put gravel and pebbles and sand, and you can even pour water in on top of it, and everything will fit in the jar if you just put the big rocks in first. Okay, easy enough. Now tell me what the rocks are, and they'd walk off the stage. Like, no. I need to know what the rocks are. Like, tell me, I'm really good at following instructions. Tell me what the rocks are. And nobody was telling me what the rocks were. And I would research and Google, and every now and then there'd be another guru that would say like, oh, do this life balance wheel thing. And you would do it, and the goal of the life balance wheel is so that when you map where you are in each of these life segments, each of these categories and areas of life, that you have a smooth line all the way around. But my line was always really jagged. And as I looked at that illustration, I was just like, I don't think it's ever going to be smooth. If balanced life means equal amounts of effort and energy and outcome everywhere, then this isn't going to work. And so I said, when things are complicated, what do we have to do? We have to boil them down. So I looked at all those life categories that the gurus were recommending that I use to focus on to balance my life. And there's 8, and they're all different. And as I started to look at the categories of life that they posed as things that needed to be focused on, I realized that there are really only 5 categories that we need to focus on in life. And those are our physical well-being, our emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being, our people, our resources, and our work. 5 categories. That's it. Every single thing that we do can fit into one of those categories. And whenever I realized that, I also realized that those 5 life categories line up parallel to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We first have to deal with our physical safety. Then we have to move to our emotional safety. Then we have to move to love and belonging. And are we connected? Do we have relationships? Do we have conversations with people that matter? Do we have a support system? Then we move on to kind of the affluence thing, but it's about achieving things. And then last but not least, have we fulfilled our purpose in life? Have we self-actualized? If you want to go back to Psych 101, there's a bunch of language that I'm not an expert on, but the fact 5 categories of heart paralleled perfectly with Maslow's hierarchy of needs really solidified my belief that I really only needed to focus on 5 things. There are only 5 things that matter. And therefore, really 5 goals would be enough, right? I need to be making progress on each of those things in each of those areas. And this is why I don't track my goals. And I would like to give you permission in this crazy season that we're in to not track yours either. What I would like to challenge you to do is to check in with your goals right now. We have a really cool notepad, and I didn't know I was going to mention this. We've got a notepad that has the HEART acronym on it, and you can use it to set your goals in any format you want. You want to look at the big long-term picture of your life, where you're going to be when you're 80, what you can use it for that. You can use it to ask yourself where you're going to be in 10 years, in 5 years. You can use it for yearly goal setting. You can use it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a daily basis. And that is the point of using HEART on your goals. Now, I said earlier, I don't track my goals, and I'm going to walk you through the questions that I ask myself. They tell me where I'm going, where I need to be, how I've done so far. And it's not that I ignore my goals. I just know that there's only one question I need to be asking myself in each of those 5 life categories. And that is, where do I need to be? What's the next best thing I need to be doing? Hey, David, can you get it?
No.
What is the next best thing I need to be doing to make progress on my goals? So I'm going to walk you through a few questions for each of those letters in the acronym. And at the end of As I talk through a little bit more in depth each letter of the acronym, I'm going to ask you to challenge yourself to say, what is the next best thing I need to be doing in that life segment? Okay, so we're going to start back with H. Help yourself. This is your health. This is your physical well-being. And there's 4 questions, there's 4 checkpoints that you need to look at on that. Sleep, water, nutrition, and movement. If we look at sleep, water, nutrition, and movement, and we check in with those 4 categories of life, those 4 categories of the H life segment, then on a daily basis, we will be making progress toward becoming the people that we want to be when at the end of our lives. So, and the beauty about heart goals is you can look back at the week and say, how did I do on sleep, water, nutrition, and movement over the course of the week? Or you can look at it standpoint and say, sometimes you guys, I use this in the morning. I use the acronym in the morning and I use it in the afternoon, especially when I've had a day go really far south. Yesterday, the day went incredibly far south. And I started H and I was laying in bed and I was like, okay, sleep, water, nutrition, movement. How am I on all those things? Well, sleep is always the first line of defense. I knew I needed to go to sleep. It wasn't a night to burn the midnight oil. Water, I hadn't had enough water that day, yesterday. I could have improved that. Nutrition, I was good. Movement, I was good. I got a workout in. Okay, so it seems like the H part of my life was in pretty good shape yesterday. Move on to E. And that's empowering yourself. That's your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And for each of those 3 little things, your emotions, your mindset, and your spirit, there are 3 things that you can do. And it's read, write, and pray. Read to improve your mind, your intellect. Write to improve your emotional well-being. It's the freest form of therapy out there. And pray to improve, or meditate, or have a quiet time, whatever you need to do to improve your spiritual well-being. So I asked myself those 3 questions last night. Had I read yesterday? No, I probably hadn't made a ton of progress on the mental well-being part of it. Had I done the emotional therapy part of things? No, I hadn't. I try to make a habit of journaling every day. But yesterday morning when I woke up early and the house was quiet, I chose to surf Pinterest instead of write in my journal. So I missed out on that aspect. And then I had also missed out on my quiet time and reading the Bible and praying, which I have so far been pretty good about making a daily practice in my life since this whole quarantine thing started. So right there, I knew how my day had gone wrong. I knew why it ended south. I had really not spent any time on E, empowering myself, my mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When we get to A, when we get to the letter A in the acronym, that's all your people, that's your relational well-being. There's one question you need to ask yourself here. If it's the beginning of the day, it needs to be, who did I have a meaningful conversation with today? If it's the end of the day and you're using this to check in with your goals at the end of the day, you could say, who did I connect with? So at the beginning of the day, we can plan. We can say, who do I need to have a meaningful conversation with today? I actually realized right after I woke up this morning that one of my kids was missing. I didn't know where he was. He was in his room. He'd started on his homework. So I went into his room. I asked him what he was doing, sat on the edge of his bed, and he told me everything he was doing. Turns out he has a plan, not just for today, but for getting this project finished for his teacher by May 3rd. I mean, he had planned it all out. I said, I am so proud of you. Checkbox on the meaningful conversation with one kid. Now, I would love it if I could do that with the other 2 kids and my husband today. And that might not happen, but because there's going to be a lot of crazy. I just know at 3:00, the volume in our house goes up and the wheels come off. But who can you have a meaningful conversation with today? And if you're reflecting on your day in order to plan for tomorrow, if you're laying in bed at night asking yourself these questions, if you're laying in bed at night asking yourself these questions, you can realize, like, okay, you didn't have the type of meaningful connection today that you want, and you can plan for having that type of meaningful connection tomorrow. Now, in the R category, this is the stuff and things. And in this category, I have adopted Clean Mama, Becky at Clean Mama. She has a daily routine that she uses, and it's beds, floors, counters, clutter, and laundry. And she's actually getting ready to start something she does every now and then called cleaning class. So you could go to her website and her blog and find out more about that if you want to. But I ask myself those 5 questions when I'm trying to make progress on the R category of my life. This is the stuff and things. On the finance stuff, that's the second question that needs to be asked under R. Sometimes that it's just, have I touched it? Have I logged into the bank account? Have I run some numbers? Have my husband and I looked at the budget, or the projections, or the cash flow forecast? And so that's how I do those 2 things on a daily basis. And then when those 4 things are done, and I'm not kidding, like 20% of our time is going to be spent on that. The longest thing that you're probably going to do of any of those things that I just ran through is probably workout. You could spend a lot more time reading, writing, and praying if you wanted to, or cooking a nutritious meal. I mean, definitely 8 hours of sleep a night is going to eat into that. But that stuff is going to make up. I mean, a lot of those things in there are going to take. They're not going to take much time at all. You don't even have to spend an hour working out. You can go walk around the block if you want to check the movement box under H. But you're going to be getting the best results from your work life and your work energy and the career stuff. Free to focus. Is that a phrase that I've heard someplace else? It might be pretty good. So that's it, you guys. That's why I don't track my goals, is because all I need to do on a daily basis is check in, and sometimes twice a day, is check in with myself on each of those 5 life segments and ask myself how I've been doing in each of those areas. Now, I can also use the HEART goals method and the acronym to check in with my goals on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. I can use it to plan on a weekly basis and monthly basis. I can say, I can use it to reflect on how things have gone, and I can ask myself what I want to do going forward. But I would just really challenge you to use this time when we are rethinking everything and we are reestablishing so many systems. We are literally changing our culture. It's mind-boggling, the stuff that's going to come out of this in hindsight. But I would really encourage you to rethink, to ask yourself the question, like, what goal-setting time period is working for me right now? Like, do I need to set goals for a year? Maybe not. But why not set goals for the next week? How far can you see ahead in your life? If you can only envision in your life to the end of next week, use that week to ask yourself the HEART goals questions and see where you can make progress just in 1 week. I promise you'll be able to make a ton of progress. Can you see to the end of next month? Do we think this quarantine thing's going to last to the end of next month? Okay, great. If you can envision that far in your life, ask yourself the HEART goals questions for that time period. If you've bought into, kind of like me, I'm kind of there, if you've bought into the idea that this is going to change our society forever, what is that going to do to your goals? But not just the goals of the things that we want to go do, but just the goals that we have. These five areas of our life. When we set goals, they're going to fall into one of those categories anyway. We want to run a marathon. We want to get smarter. We want to have better relationships. We want more money. We want career advancement. Any goal we set is going to fall into one of those 5 categories. And you just need to ask yourself, how far can you envision in your life? And then you need to use that acronym and apply it to your life and ask yourself, what is the next best thing I can do in this category, given what I want to achieve today? And the answer is never going to be nothing. You're never going to say, well, I can't really help myself today because, I mean, Even if you want to run a marathon and that's put on hold right now, you're still going to need sleep. You're still going to need water. You're still going to need nutrition, and you're still going to need some kind of movement. So even though you may not be hitting the treadmill at the gym, you still can be making progress on our goals. It's going to require a little bit of creative thinking, but I believe that every single one of you is incredibly creative and resilient and resourceful. And this is going to be such an exciting time to take advantage of all those things. So thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions, you are welcome to hop over to Instagram and send me a direct message. My name there is @Whitney English. I'd love for you to follow me. And I will see you guys next month for the next First Tuesday workshop. Thank you so much for being here today.